You got Patrick Swayze.
Those of you who have watched my videos throughout the last year know that I am a child of the 80s. I love 80s music and I love 80s films. Now, one of my favorite movies from this decade is Roadhouse. Now, I understand that Roadhouse, it's not a cinematic masterpiece. It's a B-movie in all its glory. And it is 100% 80s. I mean, look at this hair. Starring Patrick Swayze, this movie was not a critical darling or even a big commercial success at the time. But over the years, it has developed a cult-like status, and it was even the most watched film on cable television in 2020. And when I heard last year that Amazon was going to reboot and remake this movie, I was highly skeptical. I mean, Roadhouse? Of all the movies you're going to redo, Roadhouse is the one you choose? I mean, I guess they've already redone and rebooted so many properties from this era that they're just desperate to find something, anything that might be popular and make money. I mean, God forbid you make your own original content, but that's a story for another time.
Shit, audiences deserve something original, I think.
It's just that to me, Roadhouse is such a product of its time period. So I was very skeptical that this modern version would be any good. But I figured, what the hell, let's check it out. So this past weekend I logged onto my Amazon account and I watched Roadhouse, the remake. So what do we have here? Is this a good remake? Does it hit the right nostalgic notes? And is it as crazy, as charming as the original? Or is it another in the long line of bad reboots? Well, before we answer that, let's talk a little bit about the plot to Roadhouse 2024. So here we find troubled UFC middleweight fighter Elwood Dalton making a living scamming fighters on the underground circuit. He is approached by Frankie, the owner of an unruly roadhouse in the Florida Keys community of Glass Key. She offers him a job as head bouncer. Initially hesitant, Dalton takes up the offer. He takes a bus to Frankie's establishment, which is simply called the Roadhouse. He befriends Charlie, a teenager who runs a bookstore with her father, and begins the work of bouncing at the Roadhouse. Of course, the Roadhouse isn't just a bar in the Keys, it's on prime real estate. And there's a lot more to the violence in Frankie's bar than the local drunks. A real estate power broker named Ben inherited an empire from his criminal father and is trying to get Frankie to shut down operations and sell to him so he could turn her property into a large resort. But as Dalton continues to thwart Benton's plans, the stakes get higher, and when Ben's father brings in psychopathic fixer Knox, the table is set for a high-stakes showdown between him and Dalton. So let's begin by talking about what works here. I like Jake Gyllenhaal. He's a pretty good actor. He clearly hit the gym for this part. He's jacked. And he does a decent part in the fight scenes. Also, his character is engaging and funny at times. But sadly, this is where the positives for this movie end. Now, this is a modern-day action film with lots of fight scenes. In the original, the fight scenes are pretty well choreographed. Pretty well done, pretty well shot. This is not that. Too many of these are CGI, and I don't get it. You mean to tell me you couldn't just hire some good stuntmans? Maybe train your cast in fighting? And it's not just the CGI that's bad, it's bad CGI. The fight scenes speed up and slow down so many times, it's a really jarring experience. And outside of Gyllenhaal, the acting is pretty abysmal. I mean, look, he's not exactly a masterful performer himself, but next to the rest of this cast, man, it's like if Denzel Washington and Tom Hanks had a baby. And then we come to Conor McGregor. Now, Conor McGregor is a household name. Everybody knows who he is, even those who don't know MMA. I mean, he's kind of considered the man responsible for bringing MMA into a global mainstream. And I guess they thought that his in-ring charisma would translate into the big screen, but man, I'm here to tell you that that does not happen. He walks around on screen like a peacock on steroids with this goofy ass looking smile on his face. Now, I get the feeling that he just showed up on set and decided that this is what he was going to do, and everybody around him was just too afraid of him to tell him to do something else. It's one of the worst, if not the worst performance I've ever seen.
So bad.
So, bottom line, Roadhouse, it can sometimes be so bad it's good, much like its predecessor, but more often than not, the uneven acting and ridiculous story are just disappointing. It just doesn't have the charm or the heart of the original. While the original is a campy cult classic, this one doesn't even come close to that. I guess if you have nothing better to do for 2 hours, you could throw it on, but it would be a waste of your time. If you want to see a good, cheesy action movie, watch the original Roadhouse. Well, that's it for me this week. Tune in next week when I talk about, something better, I hope. In the meantime, click that like button, subscribe, leave a comment, share this video with friends and enemies alike. And thank you, as always, for giving me your valuable time, and I'll see you next week. Take care.